us, we had enormous experience, including Dr. Soundar Pandian. As a teacher in a reputed college in Chennai, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda College, why not we share our experience with the August gathering and people, especially youngsters. And what about the research scenario now and how it is going about? And what is the role of the seniors in guiding and directing the youngsters? The research is not pertaining to youngsters alone, but to everybody. And how to go about in this particular arena, still enrich the program, helpful to them, helpful to the economy, helpful to the country, and helpful to the worldwide. So this is the basic reason for this particular 3 days workshop on social science research and methodology program. Here, so methods of research, what it actually means. As a researchers, we know there are methods to approach a particular program. And what method you choose, that will make us to go about and do something in this particular field. It is a systematic process. Research is a systematic process. It is a never-ending process. It will go on as long as the individuals have the mentality, time, and resources to further improve on a particular theme. Therefore, it is a systematic process. It is also requires scientific approach. So what is it, scientific approach? Any research problem when we choose, it requires thinking, thorough discussion. Therefore, for any research, we should have one more person to have discussion. Our thought should be agreeable to him. Then only we'll be able to know that there is something in the chosen topic or a chosen theme to further improve the research issue or research problem. For this, the foremost thing is research question. Any researcher should ask himself, why we are choosing this research area? What is the purpose of doing this research? What for we are going to do? To whom we are going to do? When we are able to answer properly to all these questions, then the researcher is strong enough to go about in the chosen research question. Normally, research is conducted in different fields. The natural science, social science, humanities, everybody, they do research. Is there any difference in the research between or among these disciplines? So from our experience, I would say there is no vast difference except the laboratory work. In science, they have labs. In economics, we do have labs, but the type of laboratory is different. However, the research findings, the methods of approach of the problem are similar to the research done by a natural science researcher and the researcher in social science and humanities. I don't find any vast difference in the approach and the results and its application. Therefore, both the disciplines have subject matter, methods, concepts, procedure, testing of hypothesis, theories, formulation of research problem, which are all analogous to each other, which means I don't find any vast difference between the research conducted by a researcher in natural science and a researcher in social science and humanities. Again, the inference drawn from social science research is also possible to have practical application. It can be tested, whether people will accept or it is subject to analysis. Everything can be done similar to what a natural science person is doing. The same way a researcher in social science and humanities also can do it better. Again, whatever findings we come about from the social science and humanities research, it is also having practical application. For example, in economics or commerce or management or sociology, history, any subject that matter, there are various issues, enormous issues to be analyzed. Each issue is having life. Each issue is important for humanity, which means they all have scientific proof. Any historical studies, we have records. Unless we have records, a historical study cannot be accepted by the people, which means in all the fields, especially in the social science and the humanities, they have more of scientific and practical proof and application. For example, when we have a study like poverty studies or input-output analysis or inputs productivity in agriculture field or a study pertaining to farm management or a balance sheet of a firm, ratio of varied industries, these are all some of the issues when we choose, automatically they have a scientific formulation and design, and then finally what we do in these fields or in any other field, they have a scientific application and scientific proof and practical application. Therefore, research in social science and humanities, we enormously use statistical and mathematical tools, which means they have more of scientific application, which means it is not done just like that. It is not only theoretical, it is theoretical and also having practical application, which means a complete theory and application. Then, what is the research? As I told you earlier, it is a systematic approach to gain new knowledge. Why it is called a systematic approach? Because a researcher, after choosing a research question or a research topic or a research theme, and he will be analyzing thoroughly. How he will be analyzing thoroughly? First, he will put himself into ice test, and he will be thinking enormously. Keep on thinking about the research problem. And for if it is a PhD work, he'll be having a guide, or an MPhil work, he'll be having a guide, and he'll be discussing with his guides. And then the researcher will be discussing with his friends, and now the social media and then internet is available. He can place the topic in research, and he will be able to find out how many people have done similar research worldwide. It is possible. Whereas in our days, we used to go to library. Long ago in 80s, 79, 80 period, when we do research, we used to go to different libraries, ISEC in Bangalore, NIRD in Hyderabad, and then University of Madras, then Annamalai University. In all the universities, we used to visit the library and refer the books and periodicals. Whereas nowadays, everything is close by. In one click, we'll be able to search any topic on the earth. It is available in plenty. How best we are making use of that depends upon the individual's capacity. Then what is the difference between our period and the current period? So we used to go to the library and take the relevant literature, study the literature, and then write down the literature. Then Xerox came, we used to Xerox the material, bring it home, study, and thoroughly analyze about all these things. That was the situation of those periods. Whereas now, as I told you, it is available in the internet. So individual researcher, he need not go around. By sitting, he'll be able to get enormous literature on any chosen topic. But caution is required. How best we are making use of the electronic media, that also matters, and how we make use of the material available on the internet, that also another important area. And then, if this is whether a new one or addition to the available knowledge. In science, it is possible to find out a new one. Equally, it is equally possible in social science and humanities to find out a new concept. Accordingly, we can pursue on a particular chosen theme. If it is a new one, it will be added to the available knowledge. If it is taken from available knowledge, and how we depart from the available literature, and how it is different from the available literature, that matters. Whatever it is, this is a further advancement in the research field. We are adding one more input to the research field by analyzing about a particular theme. And then it is a search of knowledge. By doing research, our mind thinking expands. which means we are keep on thinking about that particular topic. We should not go to sleep unless we are concentrating on a particular theme and how we do better on the chosen research theme. We have to keep on thinking about it, then only we will be able to conquer the nuances or intricacies of a chosen research topic. Like any other research field, we have to use objectives, hypotheses, and then systematic methods to find the solution to the problem. This is the core meaning or understanding of a research. What is the purpose of the research? As I told you earlier, to whom we are going to do it, and how far it is going to be useful, whether the finding will be helpful to the society, whether this is helpful to the policy makers. All these things, all these questions will arise before the researcher while pursuing on a particular research theme. Therefore, researcher first identifies a research question, and then he will examine the ethical implication and then describe the research design. Dr. Sugma will be elaborately explaining about it, and then collect the appropriation of data. All these things will come in the third session. Then, what is a research method and what is research methodology? In research methods, researcher adopts for conducting research studies, whereas in research methodology, the way in which research problems are solved systematically. So those research methods and research methodology are two extremes, and both are analyzed in the social science and the humanities field. The research methods consist of exploratory research, helping to identify and define a research problem constructive research, testing theories and proposing solution on that, empirical research, testing the feasibility of solution using real world data. So these are all the basic components in a research method. Then the research process. Once we have identified a research problem, what is the role? What a researcher should do? It consists of already I have mentioned about it, identification of research problem. After identifying a particular research problem, the researcher has to, as I told you, has to go to the library or in the website. He can find related and relevant literature on the topic. And then we have to find, if it is a new one, we have to find the research gap. And then once we found out the research gap, then from the available literature, how we can depart and bring out a new approach or a new solution or a new theoretical base for this identification of the existing research or a new research the person has to analyze about it. Literature review, at the end of the slides, I have given a complete analysis of how to go about the literature review. There I will explain about it. And then specific purpose of your research, already I have explained about it. Determine the specific research questions. Again, the question that comes before the researcher, the person has to analyze before venturing into the topic. Formulate your objectives, hypothesis, whether the hypotheses are testable or just explainable. All these things you have to analyze in the research problem. And then select a suitable methodology, because methodology alone will give or add value to your research. Therefore, suitable methodology has to be framed. It should be discussed along with your guide. If it is a research issue or a research project, the methodology should be discussed thoroughly in a meeting with the experts. Then only the methodology is a sound one or not, a person will be able to judge about it. And then we have data collection, analysis, and interpretation. In the fourth session, we have a detailed discussion on this particular topic. There, we will reserve it for this. And then report writing and assess the research results. This also and the foreign delegate, foreign resource person will be analyzing about the report writing and assessment of research results at the end of the third day session. Then communicate the research findings, recommendation, and scope of further research. That is also in the fifth session of this 3-day workshop. Then, what is these objectives of research? A research, it is a complete analysis. Now we have literature on the topic, and answering to several questions, the person has identified the research problem. Now he is thorough, and how to go about the research problem, he is very concrete, and he is very stable and also stubborn in going about the research theme or research topic. After these basic preparation, now it is the duty of the researcher to frame objectives, because the research theme will always have either enormous coverage or a narrow little coverage. Whatever be the focus of any research problem, to again further narrow down on a particular area is required, for which framing objective is the basic thing in the research. Only the objectives will give enormous courage and strength to the researcher, because from the available literature he is narrowing down to several or a few questions. Always better to have few objectives. Instead of having too many objectives and pursuing on the research, it is better to have objectives specific to the research theme. Again, while framing the objectives, it is better to discuss with the experts or with your research. If it is a PhD work, with your research guide, better to present before the audience after finalizing the first part of your research. The first part about the theme, selection of the topic. Then the second part, we have objectives, hypothesis, etc., methodology, etc. In the second part, this is another important point where the researcher has to concentrate. He has to thoroughly analyze about it. So the objectives are based for finalizing the hypothesis. Therefore, the objectives we have to carefully evolve and make it functional on any research theme. Then this is to gain expertise with the new visions. Objectives project the characteristics of a particular individual, group, or any situation according to the research theme. To analyze something occurs or its association with something else. To examine the hypothesis with the different variables, we have to define it. So the framing of objectives requires thinking about all these things. So objectives are the base for pursuing any scientific research. Only if we have proper objectives, then only we can say our research is in the proper path. Therefore, be careful in the framing of objectives or culling out of objectives on the ocean of literature available on the research theme. Once objectives are framed, then we have to do the hypothesis framing. So from the 4 or 5 objectives, sometimes 2 objectives enough for a research paper, 2-3 objectives. If it is a research MPhil work, a few objectives, and then if a PhD work, again 6 or 7 objectives according to the type of the research we are pursuing. The number is not an end. Number of objectives is not an end. It depends upon the topic we are choosing. But the objectives framing is the core component of any scientific research. So be careful in framing the objectives. Once objectives are finalized, later on we should not think of revising the objectives, because if we revise it, then we are not properly answering to the research question. So I am stressing much on the framing objectives, because only from the objectives we have to pursue our research. So be thorough in the objectives framework. Then from the objectives we have hypothesis. Since hypotheses are testable, again we have to think whether the framed objective from the framed hypothesis is testable, and then to test the hypothesis, what statistical tools we are going to use it. All these things we have to analyze in framing the hypothesis of a particular research. So objectives, hypothesis, and then methodology. These are all the three basic core component of social science and humanities research. So researchers, we have to be very, very careful after choosing a topic and then collecting literature. The next step is objectives, hypothesis, and methodology. And then the chosen topic, whether this is qualitative one or quantitative one, that also another basic issue arising before a researcher. If it is a qualitative research, understand the meanings, describe, understand the experiences, ideas, belief and values, intangibles. These are all the component of any qualitative research. In the research, we have after the literature collection, then if it is a primary based study, then data collection is another important thing. So in the data collection, we have primary source and the secondary source. The primary source consists of interview, questionnaire, and observation. Secondary source documents may be published by the government or any research institution or whatever available in the internet or in the offices. So the data collection complements only a minimum thing. The interview or questionnaire, observation, these are all various components of collecting a primary data, which is explained in the following slides. Interview, it is a face-to-face discussion with the respondent, which is very normal one. And then we have questionnaire, consists of several questions. And how to frame a questionnaire? We have to frame the questionnaire based on objectives. This is the fundamental of any researcher. The questionnaire based on the objectives, it should have many major areas. And then in the major areas, what are the questions we have to include? That also we have to thoroughly discuss and then frame the questions in each of the headings of a questionnaire, which is subject to the objectives already we have framed. And then we have identified the sample. Dr. Sumar will be explaining about it. To prepare appropriate questions according to what you want to find out. And then basic or closed question. What type of questionnaire? This is a closed one or an open one? That also another basic thing. Avoid leading questions. Questions should be specific. And then try question with the colleague. First, we have to, before going for pilot study, we have to test the question with your friend, colleague. And then we can go about pilot study, refine the question and finalize the questionnaire. And then we can contact the sample population with the permission and collect the data. Then after collecting data, we have to feed it to computer, Excel sheet. And then how to go about, again, we will be discussing the 5th session of this workshop. And then transcribe, which is a record and write down of the analysis, and then thematically analyze the research problem. In the data collection, we have told about interview and then questionnaire and observation. Now, this observation is a direct information about the behavior of individuals. This is pertaining to behavioral studies. In subject like economics, commerce also, sometimes we use observational method to pursue on a research theme. Then we have research tool, collect information for the purpose of study. And then there are 4 stages in the research tool. What are they? Concept development, the specification of the concept dimension, selection of indicators, formation of index. These are all the 4 components of research tool. Normally, when we say research tool, this is pertaining to statistical and mathematical notation. But here, by research tool, we mean concept development. See, the concept development is the fundamental for any research. We will be using different concepts. Normally, in the research, we used to give definition to various concepts we are using, because the concepts will have different meanings. Which concept we are using and what is the definition we are using for the concept that gives the base for your scientific research. So various concepts and notation that we are using, we have to define it. So concept development is one of the important point a researcher has to pursue, because this is the strength of any research. Then specific concept dimension. Researcher should be able to build a dimension based on concept of the study. So already we discussed about objectives, hypothesis, research design, methodology, etc. So these are all the formulation of a research problem. But this is pertaining to the chosen research topic and the concept that we are using in the research field. Therefore, the dimension of the concept, what are the different things available and how it is being pursued and what are the implications of it, that is the specific concept dimension in a particular research tool. Selection of indicators. The concepts will have different indicators. So when we say development or behavior or the consumer, say a demand, a supply. So like that we may using different concept. Each concept, there are many books on the concept. So it is having enormous literature. Each concept alone have number of material or research books. Therefore, in the chosen topic, in the chosen concept, of the different dimensions of a concept, we have indicators, because these indicators are essential for developing a concept. So indicators, another important research tool a person has to concentrate. Then formation of index, which consists of a different measurement of dimension, part of the overall index. So research tool, the concept development, and then dimensions of the concept, indicators of the concept, and then indices of the concept. I feel this will form the core of any research, apart from the regular approach what we find out from the researcher. So I need the researcher to concentrate in these 4 tools, because the modern research, if you want to be competitive, and the all foreign research scholars, the foreign research scholars, they will say they have advantage over the researchers, the developed economies. So developing the researchers, the developing economies, they are also on par with the researchers of the developed economies, because in no way we are inferior to them. If we make the research strong, which means we have to choose the topic properly, collect the data, collect the literature enormously, find out the gap, and then apart from framing objectives, hypotheses, research designs, etc., concentrate on these 4 research tools that will make the research a complete one. We will be authentic in the research. We will be authentic and appropriate in the research. And then once the research tool is over, we have framed objectives, hypotheses, etc. Now we have to validate the research. How to validate the research? There are number of validation of a particular research theme. Content validity, phase validity, construct validity, convergent validity test, discriminant validity or divergent validity, criterion validity, predictive validity, concurrent validity, etc. What is the meaning of all this validity? That means we have chosen a research theme, we have collected literature, we have found a gap in the literature field, we have pursued on the gap and elaborated the research theme. Now we have framed objectives, hypothesis, we have made research problem, methodology is over, qualitative or quantitative, that also we have finalized. Then we have also thorough in the research tools, the concept, dimensions, indices, all that we are thorough in that. After that, we have to validate the research. This validation will give a reputation to the researcher. This validation will give you the path for whether we are pursuing on the research theme in the correct path or not. That is being analyzed only in the validation part. if you are strong and sound in the validation of a research, automatically our research theme is correct and which will be acceptable to everybody, and we will be happy that we have done a good research. So for this validity or validation is important. What is it? Content validity. Measuring tool provides adequate coverage of all aspects of topic. This is the content. Already I have told about the content, and the content measuring tool provides give the validation for the content of the research. Phase validity consists of assessment and measurement, whether this is reasonable, representative. These are all the things in the phase validity. Construct validity deals with measurement, confirms the theoretical construct, whether the research problem has a theoretical base, that is deductive or inductive. Normally we used to say in the research, whether deductive analysis or inductive analysis. Like that, the construct validity deals with whether the chosen topic has a theoretical construction. Convergent validity deals with how it is to be related, whether the research theme can be related to another area. We have convergent validity test. Then we have discriminant validity or divergent validity. This also deals with the construction of relationship, whether this is a related study or a different one. Criterion validity deals with the degree to which new measurement correlates with well accepted existing measure. This is the findings from your research, whether this is different one or it concords with the existing literature or findings available. So we have criterion validity. So predictive validity deals with the ability of the measurement of prediction on a particular chosen research theme. Concurrent validity deals with the degree of correlation of two measures. The two measures that we have chosen, the first measure and the second measure, are they different or are they related with each other? So this is being tested with concurrent validity. Then we have consensual validity pertaining to panel of experts judge who will be validating a particular research thing. This is consensual validity. Then we have external validity, generalizing the study results to other population group, whether the study conducted in a particular population is applicable to the entire population. Again, pertaining to sampling, which my friend Dr. Sumar will be analyzing about it. Then internal validity, differences observed between treatment group and the investigation. That is, this is also analytical side of a particular research theme. So validation of the research, this is a core component of any scientific research. When we are able to answer to all these 11 or 12 validation questions, then our research is a complete research, and we can say confidently that I have done a good research which is able to answer to these basic questions. What type of research you plan consists of quantitative, qualitative, or both. What methods will you be able to discover? What might they prevent from discovering? What are the growth inhibiting forces like that? Any other problem that we are going to face in that? What kind of research methods would be best suited to the research that we are pursuing? What sort of problems do you envisage in setting up these methods? What are the benefits? What will you gather useful data? So what type of research you plan? As I mentioned earlier, apart from the general thing, objectives, hypothesis, methodology, content, validation, etc., the research plan, it is not formulation of research problem. Research plan is important. Formulation is different and the research plan is different. And the research plan, when we are able to answer this basic question, then our research plan is appropriate. Then the research that we are pursuing, whether it is a complete one or any problems in that. Therefore, any researcher will be concentrating only to have a flawless research. The research should not have any issues at all. Once the research question is chosen and we have pursued on the research following the discussion so far, if it is complete one, then the research problem will not be mistake. There will be no mistake at all. But sometimes the flawless research consists of bring back the problem based on the central research question, put in the layers, reproducibility, justify, cite, mind over. So flawless research, bring back the problem, the research question already we have finalized, and then focus on the research problem. If you focus on the research problem, think about it and pursue, then this problem will not come. Put into layers. So we have techniques and methods already we have finalized, and put into test, then the research problem will not be a flawless one. Reproducibility. Draft the method and technique, and then think about it and implement it. Then reproducibility of a research problem will not come. Justify. You have to justify whether the chosen topic is perfect and this is a new one or adding to the literature. If you are able to justify, then your research problem will not be flawless. And then mind the over, researcher will be able to relate the method in finding more easily to different methodologies. So this is called the mind the order. When we are able to answer to these basic things, bring back the problem, put into layers, reproducibility, justify, cite, mind the over. Then when we are able to explain to all these 4 or 5 points, then our researcher and the research work will not be a problem at all. It will be a flawless research. And then research philosophy consists of these things, positivism and realism, whether it is deductive or inductive. Then we have experiment, survey, case study, group theory, ethnography, action research. Then cross-sectional or longitudinal, sampling, secondary data, observation, interviews, questionnaire. So research philosophy consists of all these things, which already we have discussed. Some of the points will be coming in the next slides. So research philosophy consists of determine the way a specific set of data has to be collected, inferred and utilized. Then research approach consists of inductive method or deductive approach. Inductive approach allows you to form a new theory based on gathered data, whereas a deductive approach helps to make if the gathered data aligns from the existing theory. So inductive one, we are forming a theory based on the gathered data. Deductive one, the gathered data align with the existing theory. Whatever data we have collected, whether this is goes with the existing theory is the deductive approach. Whether we follow inductive approach or deductive approach, both requires proper planning. Research strategies, nature of source of data, and then primary or secondary, that already we have discussed. Dr. Sumar will be discussing about it. Time horizon, whether it is cross-sectional or longitudinal, that is also another component. Data collection, which we will be discussing elaborately in the 5th session. And then survey of literature, that I wanted to complete in 5 minutes. I will complete the work now. Survey of literature, this is the core component of any research. In our days, how we go about in collection of survey, that is material collection. Now they are available in the internet, that is one source. Some are downloadable, some we can copy and paste. So we have material available in the internet. Whereas in our days, as I told you, we used to go to the library and we used to prepare index cards. So the index cards, in the sense, the index cards is having a size similar to a small notebook. It's a thick card. We go to the press and get it ready. With the card, we used to go to the library. On the card left hand side, we used to write the author's name. On the right hand side, whether this research is for theory or for objectives or for hypothesis or for references or for methodology, what for we are going to use the research article or a book, that we will be writing on the right hand side of the index card. Then whatever content we write in the index card, both the sides, the reverse side below, we used to write the complete detail about the publisher. This is the method that we have followed in our olden days of research. Now, I don't think the students will be able to, they are doing it or not. But even now, if we do like this, then only a research will be complete. So this is the skeleton of our approach. Even this is also taken from some study only. Typical purpose, synthesizes and compare evidence. This is the first one. Overview research area and track development over time. Integrative means critic and the synthesize. So research purpose, research question, search strategy, sample characteristics, analysis and evaluation, examples of contribution. These are all the various approach in the literature collection. And each literature available have systematic, semi-systematic, and integrated. I told you in the index card, on the one side we write the author's name, on the other side we write whether this is suitable for methodology or review or hypothesis or for any analysis. Once after writing and collecting many literature written on the index card, like any playing cards, we can segregate into A, B, C, etc. The same way, these cards can be segregated to objectives separately, hypothesis separately, and then methodology separately. The selected cards can be easily segregated and use it for writing the research article or research work. But nowadays, if you frame a table like this and do the collected literature on a particular Excel sheet or Word sheet, then you will be able to say with the hyperlink, if you do it, automatically you make use of the surveyed literature. Examples of existing guidelines for conducting a literature review. So authors, discipline, type of literature review, and contribution. So this is the modern way. What we use in the index method, card method, now in the Word format or in the Excel format, you just note down the research work in this order. On the left hand side, first column, author, second column, discipline, so economics, management, commerce, sociology, history, etc. Third one, type of literature, narrative view, systematic view, objectives, hypothesis, or methodology. Like the third column we can fill up. The fourth column, contribution, overviews, reasons for conducting a review, discuss common mistakes, and then what are the things it is being found in the book or in the literature that we can have in the form of this table. Once if we have a table format of all the literature collected, then it will not be a problem for you because you can write on your own. Otherwise, it may tempt you to copy and paste. Now, if you write like this, that temptation will not come and you will be having only gist of his contribution. Automatically, you can write on your own, which will enrich the validation of your research. Already I have mentioned about different methods of validation. Once if you have a format of literature like this, then this will help you to contribute to the research field with your own. It may be a research study by somebody. When we are quoting, we have to quote that particular person's work. Apart from that, when we have a typed format of all the literature, it will be helpful to all the researchers to do on our own. Then we have important steps to consider each step of the review. Step 1 consists of needed, what is the contribution of conducting this review, potential audience of this review, specific purpose and research questions, what is an appropriate method to use this review purpose. So there are about 4 steps in that. I think already my time is nearing to completion. So it's 11 o'clock now. And I have my 5th session is mine. I will start from here, apart from the topic assigned to me, data collection, report writing, etc. There I will combine this and conclude my lecture. Thank you, all of you, for having given me an opportunity to share my views and what is exactly happening in the social science and humanities research. And as a researcher, what is our role and what we have to do. Anything, as I told you, and the research in the developed economies or in the developing economies, I don't find any difference, where the foreign professor, a resource person, will be explaining all these things in the third day of the workshop. I am happy that we Indians, we are able to produce many good research work, and we are confident in the research field, and we are doing something in the research field. And the rest of the part and conclusion part, well, I will pursue in the fifth session of this workshop. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Now I hand over the comparing moderator, Professor Lakshmi Pradhan. Thank you.
Thank you for the thought-provoking presentation, sir. Participants can still share their questions in the chat box. In the meantime, we'll go with the Q&A session. To begin with, the first question, Dr. V. Manikavelu from Muthurangan Government Arts College has raised a question that many researchers are using overview of literature, objective, while some researchers go with questionnaire based on objective or overview. Which one is more used regarding research questions?
In the research, it's a very good question. When the researcher pursue on a particular research theme, as I told you, literature review is the base. So without literature, we cannot pursue any research problem. And that the literature review consists of, as I told you, step 1, step 2, step 3. And in the collected literature and how to go about that also we have discussed in the lecture. Now, the answer to the question is, as I told you, there are two methods. One is based on only primary data, some studies based on only secondary data. When we discuss with the foreign guides or foreign scholars, they say they do research more on secondary analysis, secondary data analysis. Whereas countries like India, especially in the social science, we do more research with the primary data. So primary data is the original contribution because we go to the field, take all pains to collect the data, we frame objectives. Actually, we prove or disprove a hypothesis framed from the objectives. It is a concrete approach on any research problem. Second data, for example, the data given by different government agencies, they vary. And I'm not criticizing any government agency. Very well, you can see the data given by one agency will not corroborate with the data given by another agency. Which data we have to follow? So normally, we the guides we used to say you use only government prescribed data. For example, if it is government of Tamil Nadu, you go to government of Tamil Nadu website or by Tamil Nadu Economic Appraisal. If it is government of India, you go to government of India website and download the economic survey data. So because we believe in the government, therefore government data is appropriate. Whereas other agencies, they also give data, but we will find discrepancy in the data. So there are issues in the secondary data, whereas in the primary data, it is done by the researcher on his own. Therefore, this is his data given by somebody, which means he is confident of the data collected from the respondents. Therefore, a researcher, according to this particular thing, here how the researcher pursues, whether based on the primary source or the secondary source, nothing wrong with that. But wherever it is, whether this is primary or secondary, go scientific. Then the research will be complete.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the second question. Professor Kumaran has asked to please elaborate on the development of concepts, particularly as how one could work up on this conceptualization.
Yeah, conceptualization is the fundamental of any research thing. And the research tool, I have mentioned about it. The concept forms the basis for any research. We'll be using number of concepts, and each concept, as I told you, there are enormous literature available. And among the concept, you have to use a particular concept with the proper definition. then only your research will be appropriate. So demand. Demand, what is the meaning of demand? There are so many definitions available. Which definition you are going to use? That will give you the correct thing. So rent, we have a number of definitions. So when we refer record, I will say rent is that part of the produce which is paid to the landlord for its originable and destructible powers of the soil. So this is the notable definition given by him. So like that, there are a definition to various concepts. You narrow down to a particular definition which is suitable to the research theme, because the concept will have many meanings, and what is the meaning applicable to the research, that you have to narrow down. Then only your research will be more scientific. So conceptualization is the base fundamental for any research.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. Dr. Daluvar has asked, in any research in the field of social science and humanities, we can use hypothesis or research questions. Among these two, which one is more important and researchers should apply in their research works? And why is it important than the other?
Yeah.
Sir, can you elaborate, please?
It's a good question. Research question or hypothesis? Research question gives the base for research. Hypothesis gives the way for pursuing the research. Hypotheses are drawn from objectives. The research question is that after finalizing the research, you will be questioning on your own whether the research, whether this is done properly, what we are going to do, to whom we are doing it, and how we are going to do, from where you are going to do, what is the purpose of doing this research. These are all the research questions. Whereas hypothesis is drawn from objectives. This is more scientific. Question also scientific, but objectives and hypothesis based on literature and clear thinking, discussion, and this form the base for the research. Therefore, hypothesis is form the base. Research questions give the core to pursue your research.
Thank you, sir. The next question. Professor P.S.R. Murthy has asked, kindly differentiate the social research and ethical research.
Good morning, sir. The social science research, social science and humanities, they have to follow the ethical component of the research, because in the social science, we do research on many fields, especially social science and the humanities. On many fields we are doing it, and they have practical application and implications. And whatever result we bring out from the social science and humanities research, it is impacting on the economy and to the society. Therefore, social science research, there should be ethical component in the social science research. What is the ethical component? Whether this is done by the researcher properly, and whether the researcher has done the ethical component properly applied, like in the sciences, whether they use a human, animals, whatever it is. They ICMR and other organization, they give the guideline for making use of the animals, etc. Whereas in the social sciences, we do have the regulations, but this is self-guided and self-promulgated, and the restrictions are given by the universities where the degree is being awarded. Apart from all these things, as an individual, ethically, morally, we are bound to answer to the society. Therefore, any research should be ethically applicable, ethically validatable research work.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraints, we are unable to go ahead with the entire Q&A session. The questions can be posted in the feedback form, which will be shared today as a link towards the end of the session. So you can post it there and we'll get back to you soon. Thank you for the cooperation. Thank you for the extraordinary Q&A session, Dr. Tirunavukarasu. Moving on to the next speaker of the day. We have Dr. S.N. Sukumar, an MA, MBA, MSc, MPhil and PhD, who has over 35 years of experience in teaching and research amongst us. He has published more than 70 research articles in national and international level. Professor Sukumar has guided 20 PhDs and 50 MPhil and has also organized many international and national level conferences. He has been honored as Asariyar Semmel from Tamil Nadu Education Research Institute. Global Economic Progress and Research Association presented the Bharat Save Ratan Gold Medal to him in the year 2013. In the year 2018, he has been given the Best Teacher Award by the Lions Club of Chennai. To his credit, he recently submitted an ICSSR funded project on bio-villages and sustainable development in Tamil Nadu, an inter-analysis of Dindigul district. Professor Sukumar is presently the head of the Department of Economics, Wales University, Chennai. I now request Dr. S.N. Sukumar to take over session on research design and inferential statistics. Sir, please.
The most respected President CDS, Dr. S. Trinavakara, respected moderator, Mrs. Lakshmi Pradhan, and august audience, especially Dr. Saundapandian from Gandhigram University, and Dr. C.K. Gomadi, and other august audience. At the outset, I thank Dr. Trinavakara for having given me the opportunity to share my experience on research methodology, research design. Dr. Trinavakara has given a very elaborate lecture on the research methodology and other various components of research. Very often we used to talk about research design, research methodology in higher education. What is the use of research? Or why we go for a research methodology, or why we go for research design? Actually, without proper research, no development can take place. No invention can take place. No innovation can take place. So what you see today, the modern technology or modern gadgets or development in any sector, in any field, whether it is infrastructure, automobile industry, agriculture, or medical field, all these results, all these activities, all this development are the outcome of research and development. So, research and development are very strongly, closely associated. Wherever good research takes place, there you can see development. So, without research, nothing can be done. So, definitely, this also may be useful for writing good article, doing good thesis for PhD or MPhil program. So for anything and everything, the research is fundamental and it is mandatory. The word research and methodology, research and design are from French word and Greek word respectively. When you say research, seeking some answer for your question, or seeking answer for your problem. That is research. See, actually, human mind used to think always and keep on moving forward and forward. So always we seek, or always we want to get some answer for our questions. Then what is methodology? Methodology, or what is research design? Design are methods. So the methods or the design will tell you how you have to go, or the way of doing things, how to do, how to get answer for your questions. You have, some urge in your mind, some question in your mind, or certain things are unknown to you. So you want to know about it. So getting answer is the major objective of your research. But how to get the answer, how to go about it, how to do it. So there should be a system, there should be a method, or there should be a design. Then only the answer will be authenticated, reliable, or valid. So there should be a proper design, proper method, or proper methodology to get valid result, or to get reliable sources, reliable informations, reliable answer. So the design is very important, or the methodology is very important to get the reliable answer or valid answer for your question. Because there will be one answer for a question that should be valid, that should be accepted universally. It is not just, answer for yourself. You may accept or you may not accept. That is different. But it should be unbiased. So the answer should be unbiased. Then it will have a universal applications. Otherwise, it may be true to yourself, not to the universe, not to others. If that is the case, the research design or the methodology needs certain basic things. That means the person who wants to do research, or the person who asks questions, or continue his research for MPhil or PhD or postdoctoral thesis, for anything, or even for general urge to find out answer for a question. So basically, you should have some knowledge or experience or a clear idea. Then I think you will be able to do or able to write a very good article or present very good dissertations. Just with a simple acronym, I'll explain what should be the character of a researcher or of a person or the person who raised the question to get the answer. I use the word the movie character. The researcher should have a movie character. Then only he can design, then only you can find out a perfect methodology to find a legitimate answer for the question, because it should be valid universally and it should be useful to go further, because the research gives you some additional knowledge, or in addition to the existing knowledge, because you are going to tap what is unknown to you. You are going to learn what is unknown to you. So you travel from known factor to unknown factors. So when you travel, you need some means, you need some method. How do you travel? Whether you are going by road or by air or by some vehicles, that should be designed. So we need a proper design. To frame the proper design or methodology, you should have some characters. So that is movie characters. That's a simple acronym. M stand for mathematical knowledge, mathematics. See, the researcher should know a little bit of mathematics. Maybe a student of mathematics, knowing many aspects of mathematics. But students from social science or history or any subject for that matter, whatever may be the subject, but we should have some basic knowledge in mathematics. For example, differential calculus, integrations, that is the derivatives, or simple, right, statistical tools, averages, standard deviations, right? Regression, correlation. So all these tools must be familiar. Otherwise, we cannot get proper answer for our questions, or it may not be authenticated. It may not be scientific. So the researcher should have at least a basic idea in mathematics. For example, when you have some questions, you have to put the question in a model. You have to put the question in a very simple model or in an equations. Otherwise, it is very tough to get the expected results, or you cannot get the right way of doing things. So we should be familiar to build a model, or we should have the idea and knowledge or experience to summarize our questions into a simple equations or in a single line. Dr. Trinavakarasu explained elaborately about the research problems, hypothesis. Now, in a research, the question is nothing but the hypothesis. Or you can convert that into model. Unless you have a model, you cannot go further properly. For example, you want to construct an house. You should have the blueprint. First, you have to plan, right? Or you have to convert your ideas. You have something in your mind. Now you transform, convert that ideas into a simple paper in which you are going to draw your plan, or in which you are going to draw your model house, and then you give this to the person who is going to execute it. So without a model in your mind or in your paper, you cannot construct the building or the premises. Similarly, you should have some idea and model in your mind. That idea should be converted into an equations, or it should be summarized in the form of hypothesis. So there should be a model or the hypothesis, or the research question for which you seek answer should be in the form of objectives or hypothesis or a model. So in a simple way, you can explain what is an hypothesis. Hypothesis is nothing but a statement. It is a simple statement based on casual observations. It has to be verified. It is not scientific. The observation is a casual observation, not based on scientific observations. So the statement has to be verified, whether it is true or not, because it is based on casual observation, not scientific observations. Or you draw the statement from a theory, because ultimately in research, we are going to test whether the theory is true or not, whether the theory is valid or not, whether the theory can be applied universally, or the theory can be applied to the particular section of the society or particular sector. Because there are many theories, but all the theory cannot be accepted universally. It should become law. To become a law or to create a law, you have to do research. You have to find out the universal application of the theory. There are 101 theories. That is why, we used to say, sir, this theory is not appropriate to developing countries because it is formulated, built by the people from the Western countries or developed countries. So now we have to verify whether the theory can be applied to India or not. So just, we seek the answer for application of the theory because it is not scientific. It is based on certain framework, certain ideas that should be verified to make a law. When you say it is a law, it should be accepted universally, whether in India or America or anywhere it is true. Then the theory should be tested, right? We have to find out the validity. So hypothesis is a simple statement based on casual observation. See, you go to many places, you travel widely, you see many people, many places. From there, you can pick up some idea. You can get some idea. You can get some inspirations. And then you have to find out whether it is true or not. Whether this can be applied to other sectors or whether it can be applied to other people or other countries. So you have to make a statement or the model. Then what is the model? Model is nothing but the replica or Xerox copy of the reality. The model is nothing but the abstract of a reality. See, the plan which you draw in a paper is not original. It's a blueprint. Based on that, you are going to construct an house. Similarly, model is just abstract form of the reality, and then you are going to verify. Similarly, your ideas should be converted into an equations or into a model. So for that, you need mathematical knowledge. Little bit of mathematics. What is an equations? Right? What is a variable? What is a concept? What is an intercept? Like, the basic concept. So unless you have some idea about a variable, constant or intercept or independent variable or dependent variable, you cannot put your idea or you cannot transfer your idea into an equations or you cannot frame a model. You cannot build a model. So first we need a mathematical orientations or a basic mathematical concepts or basic statistical concept to find out the relationship between two variables like correlations or to make predictions by using regressions. So unless you know the basic ideas from mathematics, statistics, you cannot have a scientific design and we cannot get authenticated result, right? So from that acronym, the next letter, O. O stands for observations. See, as a researcher, after finalizing your objectives, after putting your idea into an equations, you have to make scientific observations. You have to observe the things or the event or the person. Of course, that depends upon your objectives, but there should be scientific observations. For example, I'll tell you how to differentiate the uh, casual observation and scientific observations. When you travel in the bus, you can see many people in the bus, co-travelers. But after when you get down from the bus, definitely you may not recollect face of all the people of your co-travelers. Maybe you can recollect one or two people, but you cannot recollect all the faces. Why? Because there is no objective to see others or to observe them. So unless you have a purpose or purpose to talk, purpose to see, you cannot record those images or picture in your mind. So when you do research, the purpose, the objectives are important. So you can just see, you can observe certain things with purpose, without purpose. When you observe the things with purpose, it will be recorded in your mind. When you view or observe certain things without any purpose, just you are going just like a passing cloud. Just you see and go. That's all. Nothing is stored in your mind. But the researcher should store everything in his mind because he should have a scientific mind or the observation with purpose or certain objectives. So the second letter O stands for scientific observations. So observation makes many things. It gives inspirations. It makes you or it kindle your mind to think and go further. So observation or the character of observing the society is important factor for a researcher or important character for a researcher because many times or several times just we can walk on the street, we can just go out and come back and nothing is in your mind. because there is no purpose for you to record. There is nothing in your mind. So like that, you should have a scientific observation or the interest to store, interest to see and view. Right. The next letter, V. V stands for verifications. As a researcher, you want to verify whether it is true or not. Or as a researcher, you have, the habit of asking question, what? What is it? How is it? Where is it? When it is happening? Where it is happening? So like that, you have, umpteen number of questions in your mind. And the question is only to verify your answer or to get answer for your questions. So basically, you should have the mind to verify. Uh, uh, for example, when you take the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, he used to tell about many things about these verifications. Unless you verify, don't accept. That's what he said. You verify whether it is true or not, whether it's good or bad. You use your mind, you use your knowledge, and then find out whether this can be done or not. So, when you have that mind to verify with your objectives, then you can find out, okay, it is good or it is not good. So that should have, a verification ability or the character to verify certain things. Because Swami Vivekananda used to say that when I say something, don't accept blindly. When I say there is a God, you verify. You verify. And then you find out. If it is okay for you, you accept. Otherwise, you can just reject. Because when you verify, if there is a general validity and reliability for the concept, then definitely when I say it is right, it should be right for others also if my idea is genuine. My idea is right. Suppose if I say, no, this is only right for me, then it is not a research, it is not a good result. It is not a good outcome. So it should be acceptable for all the people or universal applications. So we should have the character to verify what is happening there. And another word, I stands for interest. See, when you join for PhD program or when you join for MPhil program or just any individual can do research. But to do this, basically you should have a interest. Of course, we do all these things to get degree and then we use the degree to go for job. That is there. And also Dr. Trinavkar has explained in his lecture. It is not a time-bound work. My professor Sanno Sundaram used to say, research is not a time-bound work. Of course, there is a stipulated time period for PhD and MPhil, but still we have to do scientifically. Then it requires your own interest, your own urge. Without that true interest or love for the subject or love for the research, you cannot find out the best answer for the question. Or it will be biased one. It will be biased. The result will be biased. So there should be interest, a genuine interest in our mind for research. Then the last word, E stands for expert or expertise. See, when you do research, basically you have to select the broad area in which you are going to do. That broad area means your own subject. For example, take psychology or economics or management. First, you have to select the broad area in which you are going to do research. And then you have to narrow down yourself to a particular concept. And then with that, you are going to proceed your research. So the area in which you do research, that should be familiar to you. Suppose you take the development areas, or you take uh, human resource management, HRM, or HRD, or fiscal economics, or monetary economics. So you must be familiar in that area. You must be very thorough with the theories. You must be very thorough with the variables involved in the research work or in the topic. Otherwise, we cannot proceed further, and you cannot do research more scientifically. So definitely, as a researcher, we should have the basic or the important movie characteristics. Otherwise, we cannot do proper research. So when you say that research design, so this will tell you how to do research. See, first there should be, as Srinav said, there should be proper design or methodology, and then you seek the answer for your question. This is not other way around. Just you find the answer, and then you put the theoretical background, and then you put the methodology. That won't be, I think, nice or giving proper results. So there should be concept, there should be theory, but in several theses, MPhil and PhD thesis, in many times or in many places, we don't give theoretical background. We don't give more weight to the theoretical background, because you should have a theoretical background, or sometimes you can right do research to, even based on the results and the findings, you can formulate a theory, and again that should be verified for universal applications. So when you say the design, this is nothing but doing your work systematically, or there should be a system in which you are going to do the research, or you can say the research design is nothing but decisions making decisions regarding the type of data you are going to collect, the field in which you are going to do research, the tools that you are going to use, analyze, and then the way in which you are going to interpret. Because in research, basically, you have two things. One is the question, another one is the answer. I told you the researcher will travel from the question to answer. But how are you going to travel? That is the design. So here you need, or you decide, or you make a decisions to decide what type of data you are going to collect, or what type of data you are going to use to find out the answer for your question. Of course, Dr. Trinav has explained properly whether you are going to use primary data, whether you are going to use the secondary data, or whether you are going to use quantitative analysis, whether the variables you use for your research will be measurable, or sometimes if your research problem involves with the qualitative aspects, or you want to measure the behavior, or you want to deal with the subjective aspects in psychology, like emotions. So in that case, you cannot measure it. So whether you are going to use the quantitative variables, or whether you are going to have a qualitative analysis, and whether you are going to use regression or ANOVA or correlation. So this is nothing but making decisions regarding the type of data that you are going to collect, the field from where you are going to collect, the subject from where you are going to collect, the tools which you are going to use, the style or way of interpretation, right, that you are going to use. So when you answer these questions, right, what is the data? I mean, what are the sources of your data? Or what are the methods by which you are going to collect the data? Whether you are going to use a sample or non-sample, non-random sample, or census method, That you have to decide. So answer to the questions like these issues will become the research design of a researcher. Now you have to finalize. To finalize this, you need a proper hypothesis, proper models, proper concept, and variables that should be defined. Unless you define the concept which you use in your model, unless you define the variable you use in your equations or in your research, you cannot measure it. So kindly finalize the data collections, nature of data collections, the tools, then the ways and means of analyzing or interpreting your data. And one more important aspect in the case of research, uh, interpretations. Sometimes the researcher should have a unique knowledge or a curiosity or interest or mathematical knowledge to interpret properly. Or there should be, what is that curiosity, that urge, the real urge, genuine interest in his mind. That is important. For example, I'll tell you, let us say a cricket player and his fan. Let us say X and Y. X is a cricket player and Y is his fan. Whenever the cricket player wins the game, Y used to get or suffer from running nose. Whenever he wins the game, X wins the game, Y is suffering from running nose, suffering from cold. And this is happening, for a long time. And when you find the correlation, there is 100% correlation. So winning the game, suffering from running nose are highly correlated. But what is the reason behind that? Winning the game, it's entirely different. It is, the physical activity outcome of an individual. Running nose, suffering from running nose is a medical problem, human ailment, right? Is a disease or some, disease he is suffering from that, running nose, cold. But there is a perfect correlation between these two aspects because whenever he wins the game, X wins the game, Y is suffering from running nose. What is the reason behind this? But if you just say, okay, winning the game and suffering from running nose are highly correlated. If you conclude like this, then it will become, nonsense. Or you can say the correlation itself is nonsense correlation because there is no logic between these two aspects or the two concepts or the phenomena. That means, here we need scientific observations and proper interpretations. So unless you have a scientific interpretation or scientific observations, you cannot find out or come out with the proper answer. But when you make a scientific investigation and we try to interpret scientifically, then the statement becomes valid and meaningful because whenever X wins the game, Y used to celebrate the event by taking ice creams. So he does this, continuously for a long time. And that person is allergic to, the Y is allergic to cold items like ice cream. So whenever X wins the game, this fellow used to take ice cream. So he is suffering from running nose. Now, so this thing, you have to highlight because so many things are highly correlated. At the outset, when you explicitly see certain things, there is, very good correlations. But here we need a proper scientific observation and interpretation because when you go for right treatment, then we should know why this happens. We have to find out the reason for his sufferings. Now, this is the reason for his sufferings. Now, like, when you apply that scientific observation and interpretations, then definitely you can find out or you can have a very good conclusions. So the research design is nothing but just getting answer for all these issues, whatever Dr. Trinavkar said, right? Like data collections, the type of data, nature of data, the field where you are going to collect, and you are going to justify by using tools and analysis and so on, everything. So everything, before you get into the field, you make a decision on these issues. When you make a decision on these issues, I think you can assure that you are with the proper research design. Then your result will be more authenticated, right? Now, next, let us go to the characteristics of research design. The first one, neutrality. Neutrality. See, when you do research, we have to see whether this outcome or result complies with the neutrality. That means, our result should be neutral, or it should be free from bias. See, sometimes, when you have, taste for a certain event, or you have, taste for certain aspects, or take a movie, when you have, or suppose a fan of that actor, you may not verify, you may not give, right, proper judgment about the movie. Similarly, the government program, similarly, any concept model for that matter. So unless you are free to analyze and examine and verify, you cannot give valid answers. So your design or the research designer should apply the concept of neutrality, and you see that the answer, the outcome should be free from bias and it should be neutral. Otherwise, it won't have, universal applications and validity. The next one, reliability. The research design should be reliable, or your question should be reliable, or hypothesis or objectives and the data you collect and everything, the method of data collections, everything should be reliable. Then what is that reliability? How do you say that, the data which I have in my hand are reliable, or the design is reliable? That means, whether you take any tools, or you find out the particular method of data collections, or anything for that matter, it should comply with the existing scientific standard, or it should fulfill the standard. There should be no certain standard. For example, as Dr. Tirunavakar said, when you frame the questionnaire, right, you put so many questions. Whether the questions are standard, or whether the objectives or the statement or the model, whether it has, the standard. For example, we have, quality check, whether it has the proper quality or not. Similarly, when you have your problem, research problems, and when you seek the answer for your questions, then the questionnaire, the tools, it should be appropriate to analyze, to examine, to verify your research questions. That's all. Whether it is, no, for example, for what purpose you can use correlations? For what purpose you can use regressions? Whether the regression can be used in this place or not. So that kind of, standard it should, fulfill. Otherwise, you cannot find out the reliability. Then another character, it should have, validity. Dr. Tirunavakar has elaborately explained this, right? Validity of the questionnaire and also the thesis. But the research design also should have validity. That means, when you say the validity of the question or the design or the tools or the method of data collections or the sample, that should give, or when you estimate, it should give the proper expected result or outcome. That means when you use that tool to find out certain things, that should give the expected outcome. That means, when you use or the concept or the tools or anything else, definitely it should give the similar result for everybody else. I cannot say this tool I can only use for my purpose. When others use the tool, it will give different answer. No, then there is no validity in the particular concept or particular tool. Whether X use this or Y use this, they should get the expected outcome. That is, validity. So definitely the research design, when I say this is a research design I used in my research, then anybody else can use that design and they should also get the same thing. That means, the this is a perfect, fixed, standard one. So it should not vary person to person. The person may differ, the ideology may differ, but the measurement rod should not be. When you say 1 feet, right? When you say 1 meter, it is common for anybody else, whether X can use or Y can use. Like that, you should have the validity for our design. And then the fourth characteristics of the research design is generalization. Uh, in the beginning, I told you about the universal applications. When you find out the answer, because for which you have done the research, right? You seek answer for the particular questions. Now you got the answer, you got the findings, you got the outcomes, right? Whether this can be applied universally or not, because now there are many technologies, many tools, and everybody can use it, and you can find out some answer. So these are all standardized. That means, whatever the research we do, that should be useful to the humanities, that should have a universal applications, not just for myself. So the research design should lead to generalization. Otherwise, the research may not be maybe valid or reliable or useful to the society. So there should be universal applications, right? So I think we have seen that introductions and then the characteristics of research design, and then we can see some important types of research design. See, there are many methods by which you can. For example, if you want to travel, you can finalize, you can decide the way by which you can travel. Similarly, when you do research, definitely you can find out the way in which you can do, you can proceed, you can seek answer for your questions. There are so many research design, or there are so many methods. That method you can select as per your experience, as per your urge, as per your interest, as well as per your objectives or problem. So depending upon that problems, as well as the knowledge in which you have interest, as per that you can. But once you prepare the design, you have to, once you select the system, you have to get into the system and go further or proceed. So like that, there are different methods. We can see a few designs. The first one, of course, already Trinakar has explained everything in detail, because both the titles are similar, research design and research methodology. Right, just I quickly go through the important types. The first one, case study design. Suppose if you want to do research, someone may pick up case study design. This case study design means, you can just, you are interested, or you want to find out, or you want to go in depth and detailed study of a subject. That means, knowing everything about one thing. It is not like sampling methods. For example, you want to find out why that individual behaved like this. Say a criminal, why he committed this, what is his character, what made that fellow to commit this mistake. Or similarly, you can find out the impact of a particular program. What happened to this? What are the outcomes? How it happened? So like that, knowing everything about a subject. That means, detailed or in-depth study of a particular aspect, a particular subject, or you can say narrow down a big problem into small discrete problems. All right, you narrow down your that means, you just, from your broad area, you narrow down to a particular thing. So instead of going for investigating many things or many subjects, or collecting data from using sample or census method, you take a particular subject, maybe a particular person, or maybe a particular village or a particular sect, like that. Actually, this will be a very interesting, because why we take case study means there is no much knowledge about the particular sect or particular concept or particular aspect. So this is really the field where you move from known to unknown. See, for example, a tribal village, right? This is unknown to many people. What is happening there, how they are living, where are they, and all those things you can find out. So case study method, it's a very good to find out or throw light on, right, certain things which is unknown to many people, right, or unknown to many organizations. So in that way, the case study will be useful. Then the design, another one, action research design. This is actually used in work or community situations, or it is, focusing on the practical or application or solution driven research. How to implement? What is the solutions? What is the solution for this research? So if you want to find out even solution for certain problems, then you can say action oriented design. Action design, that is, for a particular work, how to go about it, or what is the solution for this problem. So like that you can do. Then the next one, cohort research design. Now, what is cohort research design? See, the cohort research design is generally used in the medical field or psychology, right? You want to find out cause for a particular ailment, say depressions, say anxiety. So what is the cause for this? So suppose, when you do research like this, what is the reason for his diabetes? What is the reason for his anxiety or depressions or some health ailments, or even take poverty? Why that fellow is suffering from poverty? So like that, you can find out the cause for that event, that outcome. For that, you can use the cohort research design. We use this mostly in medical field, psychology, also economics. And then the next one, causal design. Causal design means, of course, in nature or in the universe, we know many things are interrelated. Many things are interrelated. Many things are, closely associated and also disintegrated. So in particularly economics or in social science, we want to just find out the cause and effect. For example, dependent variable, independent variable. Which is dependent variable, which is independent variable, and to what extent the independent variable influences the dependent variable. So finding out the cause, right, for change in Y due to X. So this is, causal design. And then descriptive design. See, the descriptive design, already Dr. Tirunagas told in his lectures, you describe certain things. Because, and also somebody raised the questions, whether we should have a hypothesis or a search problem and so on. But sometimes, you can just describe what it is. But here comes two important segments. One is positive analysis and another one normative analysis, because you can sometimes describe as they are. Sometimes you can describe what ought to be. So depending upon your research questions, whether you are going to just uncover certain things, you are going to describe the attitude of the students, you can describe the characteristics of an entrepreneur, or like that you can describe the Tamil Nadu economy or Indian economy. So like that you can describe. But in the descriptions, how are you going to project your ideas? Whether you are going to apply the normative approach or positive approach. When you apply the positive approach. You are going to just honestly describe how they are without using your mind, without using your idea, or without your own bias. You are going to just reveal what it is. That's all. So the descriptive research may be positive, or sometimes you can use normative analysis. That is um, what ought to be. See, you are going to give your own judgment, or your own idea will be there. You impose your own idea. It may be biased, it may not be biased. That is different. It may be true, it may not be true. That is different. But you have your own judgment. You are telling that no, don't do like that. It won't be effective, or it will be effective. Follow this, go like this, right? Do like this. When you give instructions, or when you add your own solution to the existing concept, then it becomes normative. So your descriptive study may be based on normative approach or positive approach. That depends upon your experience, that depends upon your urge, and also objective of your research. And then cross-sectional design. This also, I think, you can skip. Dr. Trinagasi explained collecting data, right, pertaining to a particular point at time about anything as per your objectives and so on. And then the next one, explanatory design. This is, like a descriptive analysis. You are going to explain because it is exploratory in nature. Because basically in research, you are going to give interpretations or explanations for your questions, for your research problem. So you are going to give interpretation for that, or you are going to give explanations. For example, which variable is independent variable, which variable is dependent variable, or which influence, right, what variables. So like that, you are going to give explanations for the happenings in your society, or you are going to give explanation for the particular event, particular actions, and so on. Then the next one, experimental design. See, your research may be sometime based on experiment. For example, in the case of science subjects, or psychology. Of course, in social science also we can do experimental design. That is, you are going to test the effect of a particular interventions. So it may be, I think, required lab, or the community, or the subject, right, in which you are going to experiment. For example, you can find out the impact of yoga, that is, yoga intervention on diabetes, whether yoga practice can reduce the blood sugar in the particular subject. That means, you can do experiment. That means you are giving some exercise. You ask that subject to do, right, certain yogas. After some times, say 3 months or 4 months, you are going to test for your outcome. So it involves, the experimental design involves post-test and pre-test. So in the pre-test, you are going to have your record. What is that blood sugar level? In the post, after the program, after the training, after doing exercise, now what is the level of blood sugar in his body? So like that, in the case of experimental, you can have also control group to have a effective research. So you can have two groups, right? One is experimental and another one control groups. That means, people in both the groups are suffering from diabetes. I think just, for our example. So we have two groups, group A and B. Group A, right, are diabetics, and group B, they are also diabetics. People, subject in both groups, they are taking, they are under medication for diabetes, of course. But you are going to give yoga training for group A and not group B. Then you can have a pre-test and post-test for them. then you can exactly find out, in addition to the medications, in addition to the treatment for the diabetes, what extent yoga helped them to come out from blood sugar, come out from diabetes. So in the case of experimental design, you can find out the impact of intervention of anything on any ailments or any program and so on. Of course, in this case, you can have a control group also for effective things. Then longitudinal design, I think Professor Trinagas also explained that. Of course, also he said in this case, you can collect the data from the subject over a period of time, because sometimes this kind of design also will be very useful to get the proper scientific outcome. For example, when you collect the data from a particular sect, particular say society or group of people or village, but you can continue this right process, because research is a continuous process. Because when you find out something, it won't be the end point of that. Then again, you can just do research on that, and you can modify your results. Similarly, in this case, longitudinal design, you can collect data, you can have your own research findings, you can have your own conclusions, but still, after some break, you can go and meet the same subject for the same questions, for the same objectives. You can collect the data, and you can compare with the result with the past or previous results. Like that, you can continue. For example, I think in the Western countries, I think probably in Harvard University, a professor conducted a survey for more than 40 years. More than 40 years, he has been collecting data over a period of time to find out the factors which determine the longevity of the people. So when you take a problem like this, you can apply this design, you will get very good results. And then historical design. See, you can get studies like this. For example, you can find out our cultural heritage, right? Sometime your research may be historical in nature. So it requires completely the secondary data, or you can collect the data from archives, you can collect the data from libraries and so on, or you can collect the data from the diary of the subjects, or you can collect information from their relatives. Suppose, if you study about the personality of a person, the personality trait of a person. So like that, you can make, economic history, right? What was the conditions in 1900, right? Economic conditions of India. So like that, you can have, historical design. For that, you can have the separate or different methodology, the way of collections, the source of data, and so on, you can take. And one more design, observational design. This is, already Trinakas also discussed about that, observation. And also, initially I told about that, scientific observation and the casual observation. When you have, the research, and you can just observe and then make a note, and then you can come to conclusions. Here, just, you can have, observations. But here you have, direct observation, indirect observation. That means, you can inform the subject that I make, observation on your activities, something like that. Or sometime without informing that fellow, you can make observation. For example, the police department used to monitor a person. They make observation without telling that fellow, or that fellow, right, may not understand that somebody is monitoring, somebody is watching it. So you can make direct observations, or you can make indirect observations, and then you can compare the results. So like that, just, you can use observation technique, observation design with the purpose to find out the outcome. So in the case of social studies, in the case of criminology, in the case of psychology, just you can observe the body language, how he talks, how he presents, how he moves, how he interact with others. For this, nothing you need to talk to him. Simply you observe, and then you can make your own conclusions. So in research, I think like this, you have a empty number of designs, and you select as per your experience, you select as per your taste, and then try to conclude with the scientific interpretations to add a new literature to the existing literature. I think the time is now in. I think I can stop my lecture, and I thank the organizer, Dr. Trinavakarus and Lakshmi Prada, for having given me the opportunity to share my experience with the August audience. I thank all the audience and the organizers once again. Thank you, Dr. Trinavakarus.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful and an elaborate research design speech, sir. Thank you so much for that. Now we move on to the question and answer session. The first question, Ms. Divya has raised a question. Can I develop a model without the use of mathematical tools?
Without a mathematical tool, you can have your own model. In a simple statement, you can definitely you can do that. But ultimately, what we require is measurability. See, you can convert your idea into a measurable term. Otherwise, it may not be authenticated. But because we deal with subjective factors and objective factors, all the objectives can be measurable, and subjective factors cannot be measurable. But in mathematics or in econometrics, by using dummy variables, you can measure. For example, sometime when you collect data, your data will be yes or no. Or sometime when you collect data, for example, you ask about the sex, male or female. Male or female. But how do you measure it? By giving dummy variables. For example, 0 for male and 1 for female, you can measure it. So whatever may be the idea in which you are going to build your statement, ultimately you are going to measure it. Unless you measure it, unless it is measurable, it may not be so effective. Because we are doing research only to give some answer for the questions. We are going to give solution for the problems. Then try to measure it or convert that idea into measurable forms. But definitely certain things cannot be measured. But I think nothing wrong in going for subjective or descriptive analysis. Without a model, without equations, you can do it. But when you put them into an equation, there you need some mathematical idea. But definitely in most of the cases, you can build a model for anything. All descriptive items can be modeled. You can go for a model. You can convert those subjective matter into objective matters by using dummy variables in econometrics. In econometrics, we use dummy variables because many things, it is behaviors. In economics, we deal with human behaviors. In that case, we try to measure it. We try to convert it, but nothing wrong in, I think, going for just mere descriptive analysis or without an equations. Nothing wrong with that. But that depends upon your problem. That depends upon your research. But my, I think, experience or my idea is, I request all the researchers, try to put your ideas in a systematic way. That systematic way is nothing but an equations or variables that can be converted. If not, nothing wrong in going right as you like with the descriptive analysis. Nothing wrong in that, but try to be scientific. Then only it will have universal applications. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. Ms. Savita Bhagat has asked, how to develop hypothesis in qualitative research? Is it always necessary to prepare hypothesis?
I told in the lectures, we have, two things in research, questions and answers. Now the hypothesis will be the question and you are going to seek answer for that. But how to formulate hypothesis or whether we need hypothesis or not? Two important, very basic questions, very important questions. Okay, how to formulate hypothesis? First we take this. See, the definition for the hypothesis is a statement which is based on casual observations, not based on scientific observations. See, when you move with others, when you see certain things, or when you see the natures, right, you will have, some kind of inclination in your mind by interacting with others, by reading newspapers, by talking with others, or when you discuss with others, you may get some spark, you may get some inspirations, right? Why not we find out answer for these questions? So while you read paper, from that you can draw your hypothesis. When you interact with others, you draw your hypothesis. When you observe certain things, you can draw your hypothesis. So like that, by seeing others, by making your observations, by reading books, by talking to others, you can formulate your hypothesis. Because you talk and you do what you know. That knowing knowledge you develop only by reading books, by seeing others, by following others, by listening to others. So now these are all the sources from where you can build your hypothesis. And then you can go for testing that, whether it's accepted or not. That is different. Now, can you do research without hypothesis? Nothing wrong in that. You can have, objectives. Now, you justify your objectives. That will be the research. That is enough. No need to verify your hypothesis because you have certain objectives. Now, you try to find out answer for those objectives, or you justify the objectives you framed for your research work. That's all. But definitely you can do research without hypothesis, but there should be some meaningful objectives because there should be a purpose. What is the purpose of your research? That is the objectives. With the objectives, you can proceed further. No need to formulate hypothesis. But definitely, when you have a hypothesis separately or not, your objectives will be framed on the basis of hypothesis only or the theory only, but you need not mention separately. So you can have hypothesis or you need not have hypothesis, but you should have objectives or you should have the purpose for which you are going to do research, because you are going to find out answer for which question. So the question is important. The question is nothing but your objectives or the purpose or the target or your likes and dislikes for which you are going to get the answer for that. Definitely, it is good to have a hypothesis. It will be more scientific. If not, nothing wrong in that. But objectives are mandatory for your research. The purposes are mandatory for research. Without that, you cannot travel. Because when you want to travel, you have to fix, from where you are going to, right, reach. So what is the destinations, where you are going to reach, how you are going to. So there should be a question and answer. You can frame hypothesis or you can proceed your research with objectives. It's a mandatory. Your objectives are mandatory. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. Ms. Sagarika would like to know which statistical technique is appropriate for impact studies in a descriptive research design.
See, in a descriptive research, if you want to find out the impact, see, when you say impact study, first the methodology should be properly understood, and the design should be properly framed. When you say impact, definitely you can have, uh, even whether you use the tools or not. But in the case of impact study, you have to pre and post, right? You have, the pre-test data and the post-test data. Then simply you can find out, you can use the relationship by using correlations. If it is, interested to predict, you can go for regressions, or also you can use ANOVA test. In general, for example, I'll tell you, take the experimental studies. You want to find out the impact of yoga interventions for some disease. So you can collect the data pre and post. You can find out the coefficients of correlations, whether they are correlated or not, you can find out. Or by framing regression, you can find out exactly to what extent it influences. Because ultimately, we want to find out the influence, right, by the independent variable on dependent variable. What is the percentage? To what extent it has influenced? So the influence or the impact can be understood, estimated by the coefficients, regression coefficients or correlation coefficient, that you can do. But if you have, proper scientific equations, you can add error term. For example, y is equal to alpha plus beta x plus error term, right? Or b. Then you can also go further beyond this explanatory variable. What other variables you left out which may influence the dependent variable? So by using that, those regression correlation coefficient, we can find out exactly the impact of independent variable on dependent variable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Due to time constraints, we are moving on to the last question. Dr. Deluvan would like to know, what is the appropriate size of sample for a research article and also for a master's dissertation in economics?
The appropriate size of, size of sample, depending upon your research, you can go for a small sample or a large sample. Suppose, the number of observation is less than 30, you can have, a small sample size. If it exceeds more than that, it's a large sampling. You are using, more subjects to draw the conclusions. But here, how do you decide the sample size is appropriate or not? But actually, what is the meaning for the term sample? It is nothing but, the abstract term or the model. But when you compare the abstract and reality, there should not be any deviations, because ultimately, I think, already in my lecture, I told you that there should be universal application or generalization. Suppose the sample size is much less, then you have to say in your limitation that, sir, my research confined to the particular subject, particular area, only with the sample subject of 20%, right, I have collected. Then you have to say it may not be generalized, because this is true to the particular sample. So when you expand your sample size, when you go big and bigger, your answer will be reliable and there should be validity. When it is, too small, then there won't be the concept of, generalizations. But of course, in a sampling techniques, we can have, say small and large. If it is less than 30, small, more than 30, large. And also in the case of small, you can use a t-test for your findings. In the case of, large sample, you can use a test. So like, you have, different variables to find out. But for proper implications or scientific applications, the samples size should go, right, bigger and bigger. That means, we used to say in economics, what is true to the individual may not be true to the nations. So what is true to the sample may not be true to, right, the populations. Now it is, the discussion or the distance between the sample and the population. Population means, the total subjects, total number of subjects in the particular area. Sample means, the representative of your study. For example, you take a village, there you have, 1,000 people, but you are going to take only 10%, 10 individuals, 10 subject. So the 10 people are your samples. The population is, 1,000. Now you conclude your findings. And with that findings, you are going to say that as for the study made with the 10 people, I can generalize to the 1,000 people. Is it logically correct or not? Because sometimes what is true to the individual may not be true to the nations or to the entire population. Then what is the logic to bring that, general applications or universal applications? You have to go towards the census method. You have, sample and you have a census. That means, the appropriate size, that means, basically we used to say, as per our experience, as well as the knowledge we gained from our professors, it should be at least 10 to 20%. When you say you have, the total population is 100, unless you have, 20% of the sample, 20% of the people as your sample, as your subject, I think, there won't be any logic to generalize your results. So as per my experience, when you go big and bigger, when you move towards the census means, investigating all the people. But definitely when you make a census investigation, you are going to meet and collect data from all the people. That will be the reality. That will be the real situations. But in reality, due to time constraint, due to financial constraints, we may not be able to collect data from all the people, all the population. Only for that purpose, we use sample. But it should be logically consistent. And logically, there should be reliability to compare, to generalize. Then it should be at least 10 to 20% of the populations. This is, my just out of our experience and what we learn from our professors, I'm telling. But definitely you can, this is the strategy you can adopt. You try to move towards the census. When you collect data from 5% of the population, definitely you have, poor generalization. When you have, 10% of the population, now you have, in a better level. Suppose you are going further for 15%, you have, so strong, you are strengthening your points. Suppose you are collecting from 20 or 30 or 40 or 50% of the population. You have, enough data, valid data, authenticated data to generalize your results. So always, it is the distance between sample and population. Try to have a more sample, then only you can have, generalization. Otherwise, it will not have a general applications. So better at least, 10 to 20% of the total population may be, I think, giving, appropriate answer, as well as maybe logically you can interpret and generalize your results. Suppose, it is 1% of the population, 2% of the population, sometime it may not be valid. Because, in many cases, the individuals are different. They are differing in so many aspects. So we cannot say, A is like that, so everybody will be like that. We cannot say that. So, but when your sample size is bigger and bigger and bigger, you can ensure that definitely you can generalize. I think, it will answer the questions.
Thank you so much for that extraordinary question answer session, sir. The feedback link has already been shared in the chat box. I request all the participants to kindly get into the link and fill the feedback for the first session.
E-certificates will be provided to all the participants after the third day of this program. That was indeed a wonderful day of learning. With all the spirit, we all will be gathered
tomorrow at the same time for the second day of this international workshop on methods of research in social science and humanity. Before that, I request all the participants and the resource person to kindly enable their video to join us for a virtual photograph. Participants, you can enable your video so we can record it as a virtual photograph and have it as a memory for this program. For further clarifications or questions that you have, you can post it in the suggestions box available in the feedback form, which we'll be getting back soon to you with answers from the resource person. We'll go for the virtual clip. Thank you all. Meet you all tomorrow. Until then, stay home and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dhara.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, all of you.
Okay, thank you.